Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this new episode, I want to cover everything about number sequence. So this is a prerequisite before you can actually start transacting in Dynamics. So it's important to understand what is the best practice, how you should set it up. So I'm going to break that down. Number one, I will explain what is the concept of number sequence. Number two, when you start configuring an environment or a legal entity, how should you generate the number sequence at the first place? Basically the starting point. And number three, I will walk you through with an example of creating a new number sequence and explaining all the details and what you should pay attention, best practice, etc. So without further ado, let's get started. Number one, what is number sequence? So typically, when you first introduce this concept to a finance business user, they may get confused because this is a dynamics terminology, more technical side, right? So basically, number sequence is unique number to track both your master data and transactional data. So take an example. You're a company, so you need to maintain your vendor list and customer list. You will need a unique identifier to trace your vendor accounts. Same for customers. So typically you will want to say, okay, VEN001 for vendor account Acme, VEN002 for my vendor account Home Depot, etc. So those VEN001, 002 are basically the number sequence we talk about, the unique identifier. And from there, that also applies to your transactional data. So let's say now you're posting accounting documents from general ledger module, from fixed asset module or bank, etc. So with that, you would want to track each posting document with a unique number for accounting analysis purposes, for audit purposes. So that number sequence also applies to transactional data. And in Dynamics, for every module or configuration point, you would have a section called the number sequence configuration, where you can define the structure or the format of your number sequence depending on the data, right? If that's a master data, what should that look like? If that's a transactional data, what the format will look like. So we have covered the concept. Now let's move on to the second point. Let's say you just have a new entity created. Let's assume this is USMF, and you will need to generate the number sequence as a starting point. So in Dynamics, it does provide a wizard to kind of first generate all the basic system related number sequence automatically for you. And then from there, you can use existing number sequence to further personalize to match your company requirements. So the main benefit is this will avoid you creating number sequence one by one manually, right? So we're going to show you this number sequence wizard. And then as a third step, I'll show you the further personalization of the number sequence structure. So to generate that wizard, you will need to get access to system admin or organization admin, right? So under number sequence section, you click here, number sequences. Now this is a demo environment. I have already all the number sequences available, but if this is a brand new entity, you will need to click here, generate, and this is going to trigger a wizard to let the system run and suggest the number sequence for each required master data and transactional data. And then you can come in and further customize. So this wizard is very straightforward. It's just taking a bit longer time to run through, but you just follow the screen, click generate and follow next, 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 and then it's going to generate this list with default value. And from this list, you can already see the generated number sequence are actually across entities. So this table is shared. You will see all the number sequences for all entities. And you have the filter options to filter by a specific area or a reference number. All right, for now, I'll just skip this part because we have already those number sequences generated. Now getting into the third point I want to cover. Oh, there you go. So this is the wizard, and it's actually alerting you that this company is already associated with entity and all the number sequences available. But if you are having a brand new entity, just do next and then set up and complete it. All right. So I'm going to skip this and going back to my homepage. For third point, as I mentioned, across all modules, you have the number sequence configuration available for you to further personalize per your company requirements. For example, If I'm opening up this accounts payable and find a vendor number sequence, you can go to setup. This is consistent across all modules. So you can just open up setup section and open up the first parameters. Within this parameter, you will have a section for number sequence. If I just scroll down, you see this number sequences, and you can find the same across all modules. And it's basically listing all the reference points together with the current existing number sequence code. And if this is ACCO, typically this is generated by the system. And if you want to customize anything, you can, of course, use a different code to identify. So clearly here, vend sequence, this is created for the specific needs. And you can use this hyperlink to get into your details, right? So let me explain why you would want to personalize. Number one, you want to make sure for each entity you have a unique tracing. And when you do financial analysis, you know exactly the abbreviation and for each accounting document, what this transaction comes from. Just basically make your life easier, right? And number two, if you don't use a specific number sequence format, typically it's going to suggest with the company code, in this case USMF, constant dash, and then giving you 9-digit numbers. That means for both your vendor and customer accounts, they will carry the same format. So USMF dash 9 digits 000001, 00002, same from vendor and customer. You don't want that, right? So that's the reason why you will need to come here and put it your company specific. Let's go over the details, right? How you personalize. So if you want to create a new, you can just click new here. And then you can give this number sequence code. This is a free text field. You can enter just for reference, and then name also free text. You can give a description. This is for vendor sequence. Now moving down to the scope parameters. So typically you can select shared or company. So if you select shared, this means this vendor account is actually shared across all entities, USMF, USSI, all those demo entities. So if in USMF, I create a vendor 001, and then the next vendor actually created in USSI, in that entity is going to carry 002. And then when I come back to USMF to create a third vendor account, it's going to become 003. So basically, in one single entity, you may see skipped numbers. That's because this number sequence distribution is shared across all entities. And the common practice is we decide we don't share any vendor accounts, then you can just select this company. Okay, now I'm going to pick company. And then I need to define this number sequence is for which entity or which company. In my case, I want to set up for USMF, so I just select USMF. That means within this entity, it's going to distribute numbers 001, 002, 003. It's not going to be shared. And then I can continue moving down for segments. This is also free for you to customize or personalize. As I mentioned, typically the standard suggestion is starting with the company, USMF, constant, this is a dash, and then alphanumeric, you can give 9 numbers, so 00001, 2, 3, etc. But if you want to make it a little bit more specific, you can also remove this company because you know this is only company specific. There's no point adding company, vendor, all that, right? So you can just remove this and enter constant. Those are the letters or numbers not changing, right? So I will put vend for vendor, dash, and then for alphanumeric, currently the existing one is 9 digits. If I just want to keep it to 6 digits, I can remove 3, right? And then when I click, you see the length is also updated together with this format. So you can reference this field. Your future vendor account will carry this format, VEN 000001 as a first account number. Okay. Down below this reference, so I got a warning because I'm modifying an existing number sequence. Typically, you create a new one, you're not going to have this warning. And the reference is basically to say in which area this number sequence is tied to. Typically, you don't need to add anything manually. It's only when you link this number sequence to your parameter, it's going to update automatically. Let me explain. I'm going to open up another tab. All right, so previously we have covered this accounts payable parameters, number sequences. The first one is vendor account, right? So the fact that you select from this drop down and pick this vendor sequence, this action is going to trigger the association and update this reference. So you don't need to manually add the area because it's hard to find, but whenever you associate from the configuration table, this is going to be updated. Okay, moving down to general. So this is the most important part. Now my number sequence is in use, so this is enabled, but if this is a new number sequence, there's no master data or transactional data being created or assigned. Everything will be disabled. So key highlights here. If you select menu, this is mainly used for your data migration. So for example, you don't want to use the system automatically distributed number sequence. You do want to use the legacy vendor account code. And basically, when you enable this menu, that means the vendor account, that field becomes a free text field. So when I come back and then I open up a vendor, so typically now if I create a vendor, it's going to use a system distributed number. But if you want to add something like air carrier, which is specific and not sequential, in that case, you will need to enable this manual option. Okay? And the best practice is do not use manual. Always use a sequential number distributed by the system unless there's an integration, unless you have other specific requirements. And moving down to this continuous option, what does this mean? So typically here is to say, I create a voucher number from posting 001. And then for some reason, this journal gets deleted. And now for the next new journal I create, the system wants to know, do you want me to reuse the deleted number 001 or you want me to distribute a new number? So if you keep this continuous enabled, the system is going to reuse the previous deleted number 001 to make the number sequence continuous so you don't have any skipped numbers in between. And if you keep it disabled, that means the next available number the system is going to distribute is 002 for your new journal, and the 001 number previously deleted will be discarded. Right? Now we understand those buttons. What does that mean? What is the best practice? So the continuous, if you enable this, there is a severe performance impact. It's going to slow down the posting, all that, and the number sequence distribution. Typically, this is enabled only when there are legal requirements. For example, in certain European countries, they do require you do not have any skipped numbers in your posting documents. This is to ensure you don't have any manipulation of data and everything should be sequential. Or for your tax document or any legal requirements, you can enable this. But typically, commonly used is do not enable, and the system will discard whatever number being deleted and redistribute a new number. Okay, so I'll leave it disabled for now. And then here, the largest that you see currently, I still have this 9 digits from the previous setting. Now I change that to 6 digits here from this format. That means I have to align here as well. So I will remove 3 numbers, and the next one distributed will be VEN-000002. Okay, now I can save this and accept. Now you have updated your number sequence, all good. Just a few side notes here, coming back to this section. You also have the possibility to allow users manually change the number sequence to a higher number or a lower number. Personally, I have never seen this functionality being used. So this means whenever the system distributes a number sequence 104, and you basically allow the users to manually change that to 105 or 103, depending on which button you enable, right? Lower number or higher number. So this is just for your understanding. Typically, we don't use that. And the stopped is in case this number sequence is no longer in use. You don't want user to create any new data points based on this number sequence. You can put it stopped. But again, this is a rare case. Typically, we just modify or change or create a new number sequence and tie it to your vendor account from the configuration table. Okay. Now, if I continue move down, performance-wise, now you see this pre-allocation quantity of numbers 5. What does this mean? So every time when this continuous is disabled, the system is going to turn this on automatically to say, okay, this number sequence can be reallocated with 5 numbers. This means, given that you accept skipped numbers, to maximize the performance, the system is saying, okay, I'm going to pre-allocate 5 number sequence per user. So let's say I have 3 users creating vendor accounts at the same time. And now the system is saying, I'm going to give 5 numbers to the user 1. So that user 1 will have 00001 to 00005. And then the second user will have from 0006 to 00010. And same thing for the user 3, which will have from 11 to 15. The main purpose is to enhance the performance. System does not need to check each time when there is a document being created and allocate the next available number. In this case, we just allocate 5 to each user, so they have some bandwidth to run their operations, and system only manage the pre-allocated numbers, right? Again, this is not typically used, so I tend to disable this and remove this quantity of numbers. So that way the system is going to just distribute the next available number regardless which user is creating the next document. Okay, so I just do yes, but depending on the performance testing, it is possible to enable this. All right, so finally you just save it and make sure from your configuration table from the other screen, parameters and number sequence setup, from this list you pick the correct number sequence code. And then you are all done with the personalization. So it's the same thing for transactional data as well. Now we covered vendor account from master data side. If you want to check the transactional data, for example, we can go to general ledger and then find journal names. Typically, journal names carry all the number sequences. Okay, for example, this allocation, I will have a number sequence assigned. When you create this journal entry, this is mandatory. And when you click on this hyperlink, you can see directly what is the current format, ALLC for allocation. So once the document is posted, it's going to carry this format. When you run a trial balance, you will be able to analyze your data based on this format. So you can see the preview here. All right, so that's everything I want to cover. Hopefully this is helpful. And now you understand what is your starting point and how you should personalize the number sequence. Thank you so much for your support and feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.